Well, back with Indian Open right here on Bloomberg Quint. Astral Poly, the stock has been hitting new highs almost every other day. The profits rose, well, nearly 50%, 48% to be precise, in the first quarter. Pipe maker also made a recent acquisition in the corrugated pipe segment, and the adhesive segment did really well in the quarter gone by. So let's talk about all of that and also talk about the recent acquisition with the Chief Financial Officer of the company, Mr. Hiranand Savlani. Mr. Savlani, good having you. Thanks so much for joining in. You know, I mean, because you set such high bars, the market tends to expect a bit more. You've more or less met the estimates. Let's talk about the finer details. Your revenues, as I am led to understand, were led by a growth in the sales of the adhesive segment. I believe 23% growth out there. Is this in line with what you had targeted when you first launched into this space? And how is the year looking like for this segment? Let's start off with that first.
So the adhesive business, we targeted 20% kind of revenue, and we have delivered 23% growth. So I think it is in line with what we expected. And adhesive, continuously we are launching the new product. Now shortly we are going to start the ad campaign with Mr. Varun Dhawan as a brand ambassador for the adhesive new products. So I think that revenue is continuously going to grow faster from here on. So we don't see any problem into the growth into the adhesive sector.
Is the market growing there, or is it Astral's brand image coupled with the fact that you are relatively a new entrant compared to some of the others, which is helping this growth?
Yeah, market may not be growing at that fast rate, but Astral is growing faster pace because you rightly say that is the brand image of the Astral. And secondly, we are at a very, very tiny stage of the market size. So we are at a very low base. So I think continuously growing at a higher pace for next 2-3 years should not be the problem to us.
Okay. Now let's talk about the bigger biz, which is the piping segment. I mean, I think the revenue growth stood at about 15%. It's largely been following the trend. What did you make of the quarter gone by? What's the outlook for the year ahead?
I think that is what we guided, 15% kind of growth we projected in the beginning of the year, and we are going in line with the growth. And we don't see any problem into that sector also, because the housing side still demand is coming. Secondly, replacement is also contributing to the growth. So overall, we don't see any problem into the market. So we will keep continuously growing at a 15%.
This entire 15% growth, Mr. Savlani, if I'm not wrong, was volume driven, because I think the volumes too in this segment grew by about 15%. Would the next 9 months in the piping division also be a factor of volumes alone, or would pricing play a part as well?
It depends on the fluctuation into the polymer price at the international level. So right now CPVC is a stable price zone, so we don't see any uptick into the CPVC price. But PVC is very difficult to predict because it depends on the currency, it depends on the crude price, it depends on the international demand supply scenario of the polymer. So it's very difficult to predict the PVC price. So if the PVC price will go up, then the value growth will also be higher than the volume growth. Otherwise, I think value and the volume will remain same.
Interesting. Operationally, there was a bit of a downtick. EBITDA was down 4%, margins marginally at that, but contracted both on a YOY and on a sequential basis as well. What impacted this quarter, and how does it look like into quarter two?
I think this is the lowest quarter in the company. If you see the history of last 10 years, Q1 is always the lowest quarter. Perhaps the Q1 margin are the highest in the, I can say, in so many years. So we don't see there is a drop into the margin, because on a low base, always the overhead will be very high. So in terms of percentage, margin is always low. But this time, on the contrary, margins are better. And Q4 is always at the peak. So because of that, Q4 always the margins are higher. So you have to compare on Y basis rather than the previous quarter.
Hasn't there been a bit of a pullback?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. And you expect this steady state to continue going ahead as well?
Yeah, we have communicated that we will be doing 15% kind, 15 to 16% kind of EBITDA margin. And I think we will be maintaining that kind of level. But again, it depends on the so many parameters. But 15, 16 should not be the challenge into the piping sector.
Interesting. You know, Mr. Savlani, this quarter, a lot of consumer-facing companies have shown a chalk and cheese performance, and a lot of questions about the advertising spends that some of the companies have had to do. Air cooler manufacturer, despite having a tough quarter, maintained that they would have to spend that kind of money on the advertising and promotional sales because that plays a part in how the revenue growth shapes up for the year ahead as well. You mentioned Varun Dhawan, and which is why I'm just trying to get a sense of how would ad spends as a factor of overall sales be for the rest of the year?
I think that ad spend will be to the adhesive sector. I already communicated that adhesive, we are at a very, very low base. So if we want to grow the faster pace, the volume, then we have to spend some money into the branding. And comparatively, if you see, our margins are quite decent. So spending few crore rupees on the advertising budget will not be the challenge to the company. And without that, you can't be a pan-India brand. So we have to spend some money for the future. It's not we are spending for 1 year. We are looking for a 10-year growth. So I don't think spending the money on the branding is a challenge to the company.
Reckon it will have any kind of bearing on the operational numbers?
I don't think so. I don't think so. It will be a big bearing to the operational number.
Okay, you're almost opening up a new pipeline now with this acquisition that you've done of Rex. I believe the rest will be amalgamated by the issuance of your shareholdings, 0.6% if I'm not wrong, of the dilution. Tell us a bit more about this and what does this bring to the table? What does this do to the overall financials for FY19?
I think FY20, this complete 100% consolidation will take place for the Rex. Right now, we have acquired 51%, and the merger and all process will take at least 6 months. So maybe Q4, we will be able to consolidate the 100%. And from next year onward, you can see the real number of the Rex. And we are expecting Rex to perform well because very few companies are there into the infrastructure phase. And Rex is one of the well-known brand in the market into the double-wall corrugated pipe. And the quality-wise, Rex is excellent in the market. So we are expecting a very good number in the coming forward, but it's too early to give the guidance or anything about that company. But I think our expectation is very high from that company and that product. We were already planning for that product for since last 4 or 5 years, but we were waiting that the government can push this approval route and all this thing for these kind of product for the infrastructure. But now since the government has already approved, many municipalities have given the approval, Gram Panchayat level things have started moving. So we are expecting that this product will be the really good product for the country because it's a really good product. People are tired with the traditional kind of piping of cements and all this thing. So this will be the really good product for us.
And I think it arms you with approvals for supplies to several government and the private sector projects. But Mr. Savlani, the larger question would be that Astral being the much larger player and a much better or a much larger distribution strength as well, do we see the uptick, or do we see the revenue uptick for the products that Rex kind of services in a meaningful way from FY20 because of the strength that Astral brings on the table?
100%, because today only we all are carrying 100 distributor to Cape Town for our annual conference, and there we are going to do the Rex presentation. Rex promoter will be there to do the presentation, and there we are expecting that a lot of distributor will join from the day one. So definitely this product, when going to be applied in the private sector also, the distributor play a very important role for the growth. So we are going to start integration of Rex product with our channel partner, and we are expecting that we will be getting a good support from them.
My last question, Mr. Savlani, the expectations that the street has is that there is a high probability of you clocking in a revenue growth, price, margins, revenue, everything, volumes, everything combined, northwards of 30% for FY19. Is that a bullish estimate or a reasonable estimate?
I think it's a bullish expectation. It's difficult to achieve the 30% unless there is a substantial rise into the raw material price. Then in that case, it is doable. Otherwise, 30% is too high.
Okay. Glad you're so candid, Mr. Savlani. Congratulations on a decent quarter yet again, and all the best for the quarters ahead. Thanks so much for joining in today and speaking to us at Bloomberg.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
That's Astral Poly. Decent quarter. The stock marginally off, but it's run up quite steeply ahead of these numbers, and the numbers didn't beat estimates, just about met estimates. Some bit of a correction out there on Astral Poly. 12 months, 74% uptick on Astral. Well, the market's doing reasonably okay. The Nifty Bank lying low, but the Nifty and the Sensex about 0.25%. Actually, 0.25% for the Nifty, the Sensex 0.15. So it's been a flattish start to the trading day today. Likely to remain this way ahead of the policy statement at about 2:30. So do stay abreast of that. But it's a wrap on this leg of Indian Open. Thanks so much for watching. Up next is the FNO Show.